Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Today we've got a very special guest coming on the show. We've got Pete Buie from the Learn Cardano podcast. And so, first of all, Pete, thank you very much for coming on. It's an absolute pleasure.
And thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to actually finally do this. Like we've been talking about it for a while, but we finally made it happen.
Yeah, we spoke about a few things. I think one was a drinking game involving Cardano trivia, which I think we should still do. Just what platform we do that on, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
that'd
perfect.
be pretty interesting.
It would be, huh? I think it would be. I think we'd, both surprise ourselves in terms of how drunk we'd end up.
I was about to say that
I
we
know,
wouldn't answer anything correct, but we'd be pretty good at the drinking side of things.
for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. So, Pete, I thought we'd just start. I've been listening to your podcast. How I first came across you, just a little bit about how I actually got to know who you were. I came across your podcast through going on Apple Pod and typing in Cardano. And of course, there aren't or weren't back then many people covering the topic of Cardano. You were one of the few. Through that, obviously, found your YouTube, your Twitter, and today I can honestly say you are my go to for learning about Cardano and its ecosystem. So maybe we can start with a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what it is you do.
Yeah, cool. So I'm a developer. I run a web agency. We build like WordPress websites primarily, type of businesses all the way up to federal clients here in Australia. So it's a broad range of clients that we deal with. But from there, it kind of grew that interest in the crypto space. To grow our business, we had to do a lot of marketing, and podcasting was one of those things that we did to try and grow an audience. Hence, when I started to move over to the crypto side of things, I hit heavily on the podcasting side of things, and that's probably how you found me. And I've been podcasting for about maybe 5 or so years in the tech space around like open source content management systems, and just bridging over now over to the crypto space was quite a easy step over, except for the YouTube side of things. That was a bit different.
Yeah, there's lots of challenges with being on YouTube and in the public figure. But so it sounds like you already had really
Yeah.
quite a technical background, and it was very transferable to the crypto space. You run a stake pool. We'll leave all the links to the description. And of course, you were doing podcasts before you found yourself talking about the topic of Cardano. So that's really interesting and helpful, I guess, for you finding this space.
Yeah, hugely. Like the fact that I had and my team had experience in web service infrastructure and all that, it led making and starting a stake pool fairly easy. And anyone with a little bit of technical skills around setting up servers and networking can set up a stake pool, and that's one of the things that really attracted me to the Cardano ecosystem. So back in, I think it was 2021, if I got the dates right, or late 2020, I was looking at all the cryptocurrencies starting to rise up again, and I wanted to get back in. Bull run, everyone gets excited. And I was looking at Ethereum mining again, ergo mining, and then looking into Solana, what you had to do there, and seeing what was worth it. And it just wasn't worth it anymore. Where I am in Australia, if you're mining Ethereum, it's hot. It was summer, you're using a lot of electricity for cooling and all that. I live in an apartment. It just didn't make sense to set up like a mining rig on my desk and have all this noise and heat being created while it is 32 degrees hot and humid, and I'm dripping in sweat. That's the last thing I want. So I had to look at different ways that I could mine and earn cryptocurrencies, and Cardano was the most appealing, where you just had a little bit of ADA, you can set up a stake pool, try and gain some delegates, which I'll talk about in a second, which is really, really hard. But from there, setting up a stake pool, real quick, real easy, low cost, low infrastructure kind of thing. Anyone can do it. And I love that decentralized aspect of it. Anyone can run a stake pool. And I started on that journey. And then the whole gaining the delegation side of things I found was a bit of an eye opener. That's the hardest thing, like getting delegates, people in the ecosystem in general, earning their trust and getting them to delegate ADA to your stake pool, and trying to convince people that you're a really good operator, and you can mint blocks and rewards for them. So it was quite an interesting journey.
For sure. I love what you said about Cardano being very sort of decentralized and open to people looking and actually becoming validators and running a stake pool. That's one thing that I found that really attracted me, and is still, I think, a key feature of Cardano is the fact that there aren't these massive barriers to entry. In lots of other chains, the main barrier to entry is capital. So you need a lot of money to start up.
Yeah.
You can actually run a stake pool relatively, or actually in comparison with other blockchains, very, very cheaply on Cardano. And it does all what it says on the tin. I mean, I am not technically gifted whatsoever. My background's in dentistry, so I don't have any technical skills at all. So I had to get a mate of mine who is very technically gifted to help me set up my stake pool. And you are absolutely right. The battle to win over delegators is a hard one. And you actually now have one of the larger stake pools out there. So congratulations on that.
We were lucky.
Yeah.
Very, very lucky.
I would say earned. I would say you earned that because, like I say, you're my go-to source for Cardano information. And I actually think that you're a lot of other people. So well done and congratulations. Very well deserved on that, actually.
Thank you.
No. So how did you actually come across crypto? You mentioned that you kind of looked into Cardano, and one of the appealing aspects of it was the sort of operating of the stake pool. How did you actually find yourself looking at the crypto space? When did that start?
That was back in 2017. So during that bull run. So there's a pattern here. I reappear again in the crypto space when the bull runs happen. But in 2017, one of my mates who was playing around with crypto, like even earlier, he bought Bitcoin when it was really cheap and sold it all. One of those stories.
Yeah, there's loads of them out there.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's the boom was happening again, so it was pulling me in, trying to explain the whole crypto thing, and I thought, weird, really interesting. All right, I'll give it a go. Bought myself some Ethereum, some Bitcoin, quite a bit of Litecoin as well. I did well with Litecoin, and we just hung out, drank beers, and started trading, or tried to trade. We realized, we're not the best traders, but we kind of understood how some of the our algorithms could work. We started doing chart analysis, technical analysis. Again, we're not the best at it. We weren't the best at it, but we could code, and we did understand some of the algorithms that we could write. And from there, we got together every weekend over some beers, started writing a trading bot script. So that's how we really got involved during that bull run, and we wrote a pretty good trading bot that automated our processes and connected with a couple of different exchanges, and it was a lot of fun. So it's a big learning experience in regards to that. And from that, when you're setting up a trading bot, you got to do deep research into which crypto assets would move, because we're trading on the up and down swings with the trading bot. So we could work out where we could maximize our profits off that. So that's where my deep dive into trading and crypto assets, came from. I left that project because I kind of lost interest when, all my other assets kind of plummeted during that crypto winter. But those guys kept going, and they're doing phenomenally well now.
Yeah, bot trading and algo trading is huge. I see it in the chart that there's been a real rise of algo trading recently, to the point where it almost doesn't feel like a fair market. But that's a whole nother story. But that's really, really interesting. So you actually, I feel like I kind of have a similar story to when I actually got back into the cryptocurrency market. Very vanilla 2017 bull market. Everyone thought they were going to get rich. Also bought Litecoin, which I actually still have kicking around somewhere. And of course, I think the real turning point, and probably for you as well, was in 2018, that this kind of prospect of getting rich overnight really anticipated. It disappeared. And it's then, I think, a lot of people kind of had a baptism of fire and sort of cemented themselves in the crypto space and aligned their views with what was, really started to understand it when the prospect of money had kind of been taken away, and that's seems like you've been here for a similar amount of time to what I have. I don't know if you ever heard of Silk Road, but I first got in, or heard, I should say, about Bitcoin back in the Silk Road days, years, I was still at school at the time. But that's super interesting. That's how you kind of got started and you dabbled with trading. Do you do much trading now, or?
Not really. No, I just don't have the time for it. It's my strategy is just buy something that seems kind of interesting. If I have the spare cash, and then just leave it. If in 4 or 5 years it does well, great. Otherwise, I don't really touch it. Yeah, I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
But it's because I'm researching all of these projects now and really getting into the technology side of things and finding things interesting, and then actually building projects on blockchain instead of just trading and speculating. And I think that's what's keeping me in the industry now compared to last time. So the last crypto winter, you get disheartened, you lose all these assets, you look at your Coinbase account going from really high numbers, plummet down, it's all red, and you kind of stop looking at your phone. But now I still don't look at my phone, but I'm writing code every day. I'm working with projects every day, and that's what's really exciting me now, even though it's a deep crypto winter. Like they say, it's a nuclear winter even.
A nuclear winter. Only the cockroaches survive, huh?
Exactly. And I'm one of those cockroaches that's crawling around.
That's fascinating. It's really is why I wanted to have a chat with you, because you are at the center of Cardano and everything sort of going on. I can't think off the top of my head of a project that you haven't interviewed. I mean, you really are at the center of this flourishing ecosystem. We've got the Vasil hard fork coming up. The confirmed dates are the 22nd of September for that. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. We've got AA to finance. I saw your recent interview with Mantis. Fantastic, by the way. That's going to be the first borrowing and lending protocol, which is going to be interesting to see how that sort of tilts the balance of things. Can we talk a little bit about, you'd mentioned that one thing that appealed to you about Cardano was really the barriers to entry for being a stake pool operator. Was there anything else that attracted you to ADA back in sort of late 2020, early 2021?
Well, it's all comes down also to the level of research that they've put in at every single level. So when I was starting on the podcasting journey, I was doing, the basic things such as, this is how you stake. So doing episodes about that. So the really basic stuff. But then Project Catalyst, I think it was Fund 3 was around at that point. So for people that don't know, Project Catalyst is Cardano's governance layer. And, it's a big experiment now. There's a large treasury, and projects can submit proposals to Project Catalyst, have the community vote on it, and have it funded. I think that was one of the biggest things that really attracted me to Cardano. I saw that and went, wow, absolutely amazing. So I looked into it and tried to understand where some of these mechanisms that they came up with came from. And I read through like a 76-page white paper from Bingsheng Zhen. I still remember his name because it's throughout the whole thing, but he went through clearly how the best ways a treasury should work, how crypto projects should be funded, like with a foundation or anything else, all those different mechanisms. And, that level of research, and then my level of reading and producing a piece of content and audio podcast around it, just sunk me into the ecosystem. So that, barrier to entry, setting up staple, absolutely fantastic. Then that deep research just for one tiny part of their ecosystem is what really drew me in. And of course, there's many other deep level pieces of research. There's 107 or so research papers that they've done. And each one of those pieces is a part of the ecosystem. Everything from the protocol Ouroboros, the way the blockchain works. There's 4 or 5 different white papers just for one little part. It's deeply researched, and everything is so well thought out. And that's the biggest thing that attracted me to the entire blockchain space back with Cardano. And then of course, connecting with people, when you're setting up a stake pool, you got to network, you got to talk to people. So I was talking to a lot of the other stake pool operators, and it's such a welcoming space. The other spaces, it seems like that there's no need to have this community there, because the stake pool operators need to have a community. They need to educate each other. They need to educate new users on how to stake, how to do all these different aspects, because Cardano is very different, how to vote on Project Catalyst. But in the other ecosystems, you just don't need that. So there's no internal mechanism, no internal community that was growing around them. So it's kind of defunct, I guess, and didn't really pull me in. Of course, there are communities around in other crypto spaces, and they're doing educational things and teaching people how to make NFTs and all that. I'm starting to engage with more of them here in Australia, but it doesn't compare anything to what I've experienced in the Cardano space.
I absolutely agree with you on that. I think Cardano's got one of the best communities, if not the best community out there. I think it's one of the most zealous, loyal, friendly in terms of people coming into the space and wanting to learn about it. I spent a lot of time lurking in sort of Reddit pages and all sorts of other spaces, learning about other cryptocurrencies. I'm not just I don't just focus on Cardano, I focus on the blockchain space as a whole. Cardano was just a project that particularly has interested me for a long time. And you get this kind of snobbiness, if you will, if you're asking a question, maybe about on Ethereum or Avalanche or some of these other communities. Whereas with Cardano, everyone was very willing to help one another out. And you are right, with the whole kind of stake pool consensus, you almost have to build a community around your stake pool and help each other out and all work towards that one goal of actually running Cardano. People don't realize that as delegators, through the Ouroboros consensus, the proof of stake consensus, you are actually taking part in running the Cardano network. And you spoke at the start about Catalyst. I am pretty sure there are a lot of Cardano people out there, or I shouldn't say Cardano people who are invested in Cardano that don't even realize Catalyst is a thing. It's almost like, you know how none of us are really particularly fans of VCs. They come in, they buy at a low price, they dump at a high price. Cardano kind of has its, I wouldn't call it a VC. I don't think that's very fair, but its own kind of funding mechanism for projects looking to help grow the ecosystem and Cardano as a whole. And there's so many papers. You mentioned all the papers that are out there. So many of these papers are still yet to come into effect. And they're mind-blowing. Yeah. I mean, I read them and I have to kind of go, I don't understand a bloody word of this. I get the concept, but I wouldn't know how any of this works. I mean, we've got Hydra, we've got Mithril. These are all things that are in the pipeline to come down the road. And I think, agree with everything that you said. And the real thing that separated Cardano, I think, from the herd was the work that had been put into it before actually shipping it. So lots of other blockchains just thought, you know what, we're gonna go to market, we're gonna make sure that we're in a bull market when we launch, and we're gonna appreciate from that price. Cardano never did that. It said we want to build a blockchain. We don't want to build a blockchain to make money necessarily. The intentions I think behind Cardano are pure ones. I think one thing that, and I don't know really your thoughts on Charles Hoskinson. I take it you're a fan of his, or you think he's a good person to have kind of heading a project. But he was one person that really got me interested in ADA, because he was about and developing Ethereum before it was even cool to be in the blockchain space, before there was really any prospect of making any money. So that, I think, is a fantastic feature. And you mentioned you having struggled to get delegators at the start. Have you got any kind of advice for somebody looking to maybe start a stake pool and gain delegators? Because even I've struggled, and I have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, it is very hard. Well, like I said, I think we were at the right time, right place, and worked with the right projects to gain that delegation. So we initially got a big initial stake from a large investor that had several million ADA. So we brought him on as a part of the team, internally as a team. So his stake really boosted us up to get past a certain point, a certain threshold, where we would be minting blocks every single epoch, every 5 days. So I think that was a really important thing. And that is almost impossible, really hard for people now. Like, no one has several $1 million just to spend, just to buy enough ADA to start minting blocks every epoch. So if you can't do that, obviously not anyone can. The other thing that you could probably do is start partnering up with different projects that offer additional tokens for your stake pool. So there's a lot of ISPOs, this initial stake pool offerings. A lot of people in the crypto space have no idea about these ISPOs, and these ISPOs are absolutely amazing. It's a brilliant funding mechanism in the Cardano ecosystem where projects can set up a stake pool, and in exchange for the rewards that you would normally get from the delegators' rewards, the pool would absorb them all. So they could, on a fully saturated pool, earn about 35,000 ADA per every 5 days, every epoch. and that can be used to fund their project. And in return, they give these specific tokens back for the project. And, you know, the value of them may increase 10, 50 fold. So, you know, that's the trade-off. So, you know, those ISPOs, absolutely amazing. And we were lucky enough to be in on a part of those ISPOs in the early days. So we had a bit of Sunday swap exposure earlier, I think it was earlier this year, before their DEX launched. And for users to get those Sunday swap tokens, they had to delegate to our pool. So we watched our stake pool go from, you know, a humble little 10 million all the way up to full saturation, 69 million in a day. It's
Wow.
absolutely
Insane.
Amazing how that, yeah, it's absolutely insane. It's like people want these upcoming project tokens. And with Sunday Swap being the very first AMM DEX to launch on Cardano, people were in because they wanted that, you know, a big price appreciation on launch of the DEX, sell at the top, price will go down, buy back later. So, you know, that kind of pattern as something launches. So they were after that, delegate to the stake pool, watched it skyrocket up. That lasted for about maybe 5 or 6 epochs, then started to trickle down. But then after that, you could start partnering up with another ISPO that is doing something very similar. So we did that as well. We found a couple more, and that's kept the delegation up quite high. And then during that time, build up a relationship with all of your delegates, build a community around it, like you were saying a little bit earlier. And of course, what we've done is created the YouTube channel, trying to build trust, trying to educate people around the Cardano ecosystem and why you know, you should be sticking around and being a part of the ecosystem. And as I believe, as a thank you for a lot of the people that are watching and getting value out of the content, they delegate to my stake pool. And I can't tell you if that is the case. They're doing it as a thank you, but I know a couple of them do, and they'd have reached out, and they're, you know, large holders of ADA, and they really appreciate all the things that contribute to the community. So, you know, it's a big thank you there. So that's probably the biggest takeaways, partnering up with projects that can give you additional tokens and incentives for delegates to actually delegate to your pool, provide educational content, hand-holding users and delegates in, and building that relationship between you and the delegates. I think they're the biggest things that you can do to attract more delegates to your pool.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. It's something I need to sort of embark on with my own pool a little bit. But I'm 100% sure that it is a thank you to you from most of your delegators, because like I say, you do an absolutely fantastic job. And if you are a stake pool operator, there's no harm in starting a YouTube channel and talking about what you're potentially passionate about. You know, and you're not just adding value to yourself, you're adding value to the community. Also, ISPOs, I know there's mixed views on ISPOs. I think as a whole, they are for the greater good. There's going to be nothing in life is perfect. Nirvana isn't for this world, so there's always going to be casualties at one end. But Sunday Swap, you know, are you involved in any ISPOs at the moment?
Yeah, at the moment it's the Adana one. So a distribution of the Dana token. So
Yep.
Adana is the stablecoin platform, technically borrowing and lending as well.
You interview, and I've seen your interviews, and you've interviewed so many people that are building within this ecosystem. I thought it would be good to do an interview with you, which is what we're doing, where we kind of ask you some questions. What are you excited about in this ecosystem? Because one thing through listening to your videos that I've really discovered is the scope, and I still think we're finding the use cases out for blockchain. The scope of what's being built on top of the Cardano ecosystem is vast. It's not just DeFi. It's, you know, if we look at the NFT space, and we can maybe touch on NFTs after this question, or maybe it's a part of it. What's really exciting you about this ecosystem moving forward? What are you looking at and paying attention to?
Yeah. Okay. There's probably 3 major parts that really excite me. So I have to break it down to 3 parts. So first, the DeFi side of things. So the new type of DeFi, the what you see with Uniswap, and you know, every other copy of Uniswap is rather boring now. It's just another swap. It's another DEX, big deal. But like these new generation DEX, the order book style ones combined with a automated market maker, so the Uniswap plus the centralized style of exchange now being built on Cardano, is very interesting. And then incorporating NFTs into that to get the extra yield farming out of it as well. There's so many different games that people are incorporating into it. It's like a gamification of DeFi, and I absolutely love that. But then, like, other protocols are putting in AI and all these other really smart mechanisms, machine learning, and cross chain aggregation of liquidity as well. So, all these things are making it really, really exciting and taking DeFi to the next level. And I missed out on the big DeFi rise on Ethereum. I'm not letting that happen again. So this is like another opportunity that I see a brand new type of DeFi grow from the Cardano ecosystem. And I'm hoping it is as secure as they promise it to be, with less hacks because of the formally verified smart contracts that are built into the protocol itself. So I'm really hoping that it's a more secure, more solid foundation to build DeFi on, with all these extra smarts and the different EUTXO model that makes it so unique compared to what you see in the current space at the moment. So that's the big thing around the DeFi stuff that's really exciting me. Then there's RealFi, and then there's the NFT space too.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Pete. I mean, I'm loving where you're going with that. EUTXO really is different, and what you said about all these, because you had Uniswap launch, and then you had SushiSwap kind of vampire attack Uniswap and just basically copy the code and just come up with their own things. It's all open source. It is really nice and refreshing to see people doing different things. And even in terms of a yield point with these dexes, we're hearing triple, quadruple, whatever the next metric is up from that, or unit up from that is, yield potentials with these dexes. They're really going above and beyond. EUTXO, I mean, it's fantastic on a number of levels, but one of the really underlooked thing, I think, is the fact that you can literally send all your tokens in one transaction.
Which other people on other ecosystems don't even realize.
Do you know how much that would cost on Ethereum?
Yeah.
You'd go broke trying to move your tokens around.
Yeah. I saw someone talk about this protocol on Ethereum, where it would allow you to do you have one transaction that you can send to a smart contract, and that would then distribute those payments to 10 other people. And I just looked at it and went, really? You need a whole smart contract and transactions for all of those? Whereas in the Cardano space, you just put in all the other wallets that you want to send it to, the amounts, press send, and it will cost you less than 0.5 ADA to do all those transactions. And it's in one split transaction, as opposed to having to do all these multiple transactions and pay and deal with the gas fees and having failed transactions. That's just not how you want to do things. If I'm sending money to you, like, you don't want it to fail. You just want it to work. That's a bare fundamental. Like, come on, you got to get that one right.
I've had many horror stories sending quite significant amounts of Ethereum to a MetaMask or an exchange, and it's like, you're waiting 8 hours for a considerable sum, not even knowing whether it's going to get there to arrive or not. Yeah, you can check Etherscan if you know how to do that. But there's certain, we touched on it in regards to all the papers that have been written. There's so much that Cardano has to offer that I don't think people even understand. And we're definitely going to have to do something again where we maybe go into some of these individual aspects of ADA and really, your channel again, for anybody listening, please go and give Pete a follow. All his links and everything's going to be in the description. You mentioned the NFT space in regards to what you're excited about. You mentioned the 3 components. So we've covered the sort of DeFi and the new and innovative way it's kind of coming about on the Cardano ecosystem. You also mentioned the fact that you missed out on the Ethereum kind of DeFi summer. I was very much a part of that, involved with Chainlink, Aave, all these other protocols. This is one thing that I think people don't realize about Cardano. That is still to come. What have we got? 12 apps on DeFi Llama at the moment. There's going to be hundreds by the time we get through, thousands potentially by the time we get through with this. Do you want to dive into NFTs and what excites you? We've got all sorts coming out in the NFT space. And I think I'm still yet to release an interview with the Lending Pond, which are kind of merging DeFi with the NFT sector, which I think is super interesting in terms of providing an avenue to get liquidity out of NFTs.
Yeah, I've been meaning to get those guys on the podcast as well. It's just the time zone just does not work. And I think they're still in high school as well. So it's it made things very difficult with the timing, but you know, they're doing some amazing things. And I've partnered up with a competitor of theirs as well called Fluid Token. They're doing exactly the same thing as well. So, you know, the fact that there's competition already in such an early time is very good for the ecosystem, I think.
It's very healthy. Competition is what motivates people to be better. And I think that's, people often see competition as a bad thing. I think it's brilliant and really support it.
Yep. Totally agree. So you see these two protocols, you know, trying to outdo each other, and that's great. That is really great. They'll get better and better. But essentially, it's like a DeFi borrowing lending protocol where you can use NFTs as collateral for your loan. So you can put down one, you know, your favorite NFT. It might be a Space Buds. They're quite popular in the Cardano space. You put that down. It's worth like 5,000 ADA as collateral. You take like a 2,000 ADA loan out of it, and then you can yield farm that elsewhere on a DEX, earn those rewards, pay back your loan, and keep the profit on top. So, you know, that kind of play with the DeFi and the NFT space, absolutely amazing. But then there's all these other things. Like I don't know if this is a unique thing to Cardano, but Cardano NFTs can evolve. So you think you mint an NFT and it's on the blockchain and it's like that and stays like that forever. But Cardano NFTs are slightly different because the metadata of it can be updated. So there's projects like the Cardano trees, where you can have a tree that evolves over time. And depending on its location in the world, like you might mint a tree and it's in the UK. And depending on the season, the tree will change. So all those little tiny things, like a time, will affect it. So we're seeing NFTs that will work off the Cardano time clock and evolve and change over time, depending on the longitude and latitude of the NFT, where it's was originally minted. The time of day, the seasons will also affect the NFT. So really innovative stuff like that is coming out, or, you know, a pure algorithmic NFT that's stored completely on chain, which has the code and DNA of the NFT. You can pull that out and generate it elsewhere into a magnificent piece of artwork. You know, that's like a true NFT that's always on chain. So we're seeing some really cool things like that in the NFT space on Cardano, which I haven't really seen anywhere else on other ecosystems, where it's mainly just pictures. So yeah, and I've joined a lot of like Twitter spaces to try and work out and find out what other ecosystems are doing with the NFTs. And, you know, they're building communities and doing some really interesting things like that, but nothing like technologically really groundbreaking. So like in the Cardano NFT space, we're also seeing like a extended utility where the NFTs are being staked to earn extra yield rewards as well. So I don't know if it's being done in other spaces, but protocols like ViFi were one of the very first ones where I saw that, where they gave away one of their NFTs to all their ICO participants. And it was just for fun. And they said, all right, well, now you can get that NFT and stake it within our protocol, and we'll give you some more of our tokens. And, you know, that's like a slow inflation for it. And it gives users an incentive to hold that NFT and also to hold some of their ViFi tokens as well. And, you know, I thought that was an absolutely brilliant play, because we saw the value of the NFT go from absolutely zero to 7,000 ADA per one of these NFTs. So highly desirable asset with that little bit of utility that was put in, and desirability behind it. So we're seeing some really cool things like that. But then like other projects on the other side that are in the RealFi space. So they're using NFTs as land rights for people that can digitalize and authenticate their ownership of a piece of land or property. We're seeing digital identities being created on the Cardano blockchain as well. So we're tying that in with the land rights. So you have a land title and, you know, you own this property, but who owns this property? Here's the digital identity that's attached to it and is proven to be you using zero knowledge proofs. Like, amazing, amazing innovations that are being pieced together. And, you know, I'm just sitting back here interviewing these people going, oh my God, how did you come up with this stuff? How are you using this innovation? And it's all come out of like, you know, technical challenges that people experience in like creating an NFT marketplace. So someone will create an NFT collection and put it on an NFT marketplace, but how do you prove that this NFT collection belongs to this person? So you need some sort of ID and verification system. So that's spawned some of these use cases for digital identities. So, you know, it's absolutely amazing what these guys have come up with. And another point on top of that, like people do think NFTs are just pictures. They're not. And we're seeing this space evolve so quickly because of these needs and requirements for these like pictured projects. And, you know, when this space evolves a little bit more, this is just the playground. These pictures, these PFPs, they're just the starting point. And it's what we are as builders just experimenting with to take it further, to make it really, really useful. And in the future, hopefully, when you're interacting with your local driver's registry, motor registry, whatever you call it there, it's all run on blockchain. It's all run on NFTs, and you wouldn't even have a clue.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, Pete. I mean, you've got me excited. I knew about the metadata changes, but I didn't really think about the seasonality effect and all this other thing that can be coded in. I've said this for a while. Artwork is not the main functionality of NFTs. You hit the nail 100% on the head there. Land rights, identities, you know, this is the beautiful thing about being in the crypto space at the moment. We have no idea how it's going to, we've got a rough idea of how it's going to shape the future, but the application for smart contracts is applicable to basically any industry. And as the world moves more and more digital, this is where blockchain is really going to play a role. There was an article wrote by Wells Fargo, who's the third largest bank in America. Not that any of us trust banks, but the article basically spoke about the Internet of Value and likened blockchain as being as revolutionary as electricity, the motoring industry. Me and you right now are interacting over the internet, which was a revolution to happen prior, via a PC. Both revolutions. Blockchain is on a similar, when we talk about blockchain, really it's just a technology that's getting adopted, and that's where the value comes from. And I think it's a really, really interesting world to be a part of. You know, that there's so much that blockchain has to offer. And again, going back to really why I wanted to interview you, mentioned we're in a bear market. We absolutely are, but don't let that discourage you from paying attention to what's really going on here. This is just short-term volatility in a longer-term trajectory. It's fascinating what's going on, Pete. And it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. You know, I'm going to leave a link to all of your socials in the description. We could talk for hours and hours, and hopefully we can do this again. But thank you very much for coming on, Pete. It's been a pleasure, and it's been nice for me to interview the interviewer.
Yeah, it's weird.
I believe it.
It's weird.
I believe it. I believe it. But massive thank you, Pete, for coming on and giving your time. I know it's midnight where you are, so a huge thank you. And I'm really looking forward to doing this again if we can.
And thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Pete.